A storm that struck Nelson, Tasman 18 months ago has become the benchmark by which councils are projecting sea level rise in the region. Tasman's Mayor Richard Kempthorne is now asking people to stay calm if they receive a letter indicating their property may be at risk from sea level rise and storm tides. He says it's the first step in the conversation about what lies ahead and how it might be managed. Our Nelson reporter Tracy Neal visited residents in some of the most vulnerable locations and asked them if they're worried.
The confluence of a king tide and a storm surge generated by Cyclone Fehi damaged homes, roads and property right around the edge of Tasman Bay and into Golden Bay. Robert Anderson lives on the water's edge in Motueka and had to leave when the sea went through his two-storey home.
The tide just poured over the bank here, down there, and it was waist deep further down there of seawater. That's why all these trees have died. It was all underwater here, right across the paddock.
He says the warning signs appeared when he and his late wife Joy began building their home in the mid-1980s.
We're living in a caravan, and Joy that night said, "We've got to move the house." I said, "Why?" She said, "The sea's coming under the house," and it was running under the house, a pillar down the road. So that's 1987.
The sea level around New Zealand has risen at an average annual rate of 1.8 millimetres over the last century. The Ministry for the Environment says it could rise a further metre by 2100. Councils around the country are already taking steps to mitigate the effects, from increasing the height of building foundations to talks around relocating towns. In Tasman, some will soon know if their property may be at risk, even if it's not directly connected to the coast. Mayor Richard Kempthorne knows people will be concerned.
This is the start of a process. We've now got NIWA information and Ministry for the Environment guidance, which we need to take account of. So we must have this conversation with our community, and as we go forward, we'll be working out what are the measures that can be taken.
Bob Haswell lives on the cliffs above Tasman's Ruby Bay, away from any possible sea level rise, but not immune to the effects of erosion from recent severe weather. He reckons the council's planning approach is misguided.
What I think they're trying to say is we're going to get extremes of cyclones that are going to pump water into coastal properties. So how do you plan for that?
Mr Haswell prefers to blame recent events on weather extremes as opposed to climate change, a term he's already tired of. But Richard Kempthorne says the current action is modelled on predictions.
Some of the properties may not be affected and some may, and exactly when is anybody's guess. But what we're looking at is, with the information that we've been given, looking long term, these are the properties and issues that we need to be making people aware of.
That's about where the water is. That's the tide comes into there.
Should we walk down there?
Yeah, it's not far.
Russell and Rose Scott live down a quiet country lane not far from Robert Anderson on the edge of the Motueka estuary. They enjoy riding their horses along the beach, which is part of a dynamic sandspit.
We're riding 30 metres inland from where we were 10 years ago, at least 30, some places more. And then in 2016, the sandbar, the water rushed right across and put a wee channel in there, and that's quite deep now.
Mr Scott says the changes are happening before their eyes, and he's not sure there's a lot anyone can do. Local Government New Zealand has already said that while some councils see it as inevitable they'll have to take some responsibility, it's not their role to protect private property from erosion. Bob Haswell doesn't want to think about what it could cost the ratepayer.
What are we going to spend? TDC, $1 billion to rectify or raise the coastal plateaus and bring, truckloads of soil down from great mountains and raise that whole coastal zone and protect it. I don't think so. We can't afford to do things like that.
Russell Scott reckons halting sea level rise is about as easy as harnessing the moon.
No, that's too big a job. It's huge. I wouldn't want to be on council coming up with ideas to try and protect it. You can have a lot of money and put a lot of rocks in place, which holds it for a wee while.
In the meantime, the Scots would like the council to fix the blocked roadside culvert outside their place, which has already flooded the neighbour's property.
And they put the wrong size culvert in, but it's not coping and it's probably blocked in there somewhere, and so it's just not getting away, and the water's sat there for 3 days now, and I don't think the neighbour's home to come home and see all these fijoas underwater.
Residents are hoping that those fijoas are the only things succumbing to rising water levels. In Tasman for Checkpoint, Tracy Neal.